everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video, thanks to the awesome team over at SOUNDWAVE Store, I'm incredibly excited to be able to bring you guys a review of the all-new Mechanical Alliance SX-02 Transformers Bumblebee movie SOUNDWAVE. Now, for those of you looking to add this guide to your collection, I will of course provide all of the links down in the description box below. And before we actually get into the review, yes, this figure can in fact transform. This is the first B-movie Soundwave that we have ever gotten to actually have an alternate mode, and that is one of the reasons why I've been super excited to actually get this guy in hand, as up until this guy's release, we had really only gotten that awesome 3-0 figure. So to actually get this guy, honestly, I was just so pumped. And Mechanical Alliance have been knocking it out of the park lately, not only with their KO Constructicons, but also with their most recent release, that being the Mechanical Alliance Blitzwing. And out of all of the third-party figures that I currently own in my collection, I've probably had the most fun with this particular figure, as honestly, he's so well done. Now, before we take a look at Soundwave himself, we'll very quickly go through the accessories. So we do get included one Soundwave rifle, which we see him use very briefly in the B movie. You can see in regards to the sculpt work, for a third-party piece, I think this has turned out so nicely. You can see all very crisp and precise, and we've also got this silver wash applied over the top in order to give you the impression that this is battle and worn. As we spin around here to the back, you can once again see more of the same detailing, although this time we have in fact got the battery cover, as if we spin here to the back, you can see this tiny little switch that when toggled will indeed emit a super awesome blue laser beam. Now sadly, we never actually see Soundwave use his rifle in the movie against the Autobots, we merely just see him wield it, but this is really cool. And we also do get included, whilst a little weak, an actual blast effect to insert into this. Now personally, I don't think this is the best looking blast effect. It is merely just a big lump of transparent blue plastic, but I guess it is a nice inclusion. Now whilst you can't really see it all that well in this particular shot, the actual LED is essentially lighting up the main section of this blast effect. Now sadly, the only main drawback of this is that Soundwave can't really hold it all that well, and it's all mainly down to this actual handle section. If I just bring the hand in here for a closer look, you can see that he does indeed have articulated fingers and a huge slot, which actually, when getting the figure out of the packaging, I was actually expecting there to be a big tab molded into the side of this, but sadly there is not, meaning that he can only really hold it with the grip of the fingers, and whilst they are tight, they really don't get a hold of this all that well. You really have to push the trigger finger in there, and then even then it's a very loose grip. You can see how it does, at least here on my copy, want to consistently droop down, so that definitely is a missed opportunity in my opinion. I tend to just leave this and set it off to the side, or I guess if you were just displaying Soundwave on a shelf, you could kind of wedge it in there, but that is definitely something that I wish they could have perhaps improved upon. We also do get included Ravage with this particular guy, which is really awesome. Now sadly, seeing as this was a pre-production sample, I didn't get any form of instructions with this, so I haven't been able to actually transform Ravage in the way that I at least believe he was intended. So I'll just show you how I managed to convert him to actually get him stored away here in the chest. So if we just drop this section down, you can see there is Ravage folded up, embedded within Soundwave's chest. Now it's actually very difficult to get out, so I was glad to see that Mechanical Alliance did engineer this in a way so that if he did become stuck, you could lift this top section up, and then that would allow you to free him. You can see that this is really the only conversion that I've actually been able to get this guy in where he actually fits in the chest, and I definitely think that this is not the correct way, and maybe when this guy begins circulating a little more and we actually get images of the instructions, I might be able to come back and actually show you guys the official conversion. But you can see definitely not very convincing when in comparison to what we saw in the movie, but honestly I actually think it's just super cool that he can in fact fold and store away in the chest. Now to transform him into robot mode, I guess you just want to pull all of this here out, and the actual head itself does become wedged in there pretty much all of the time. So for those of you who are looking to pick this figure up, I really wouldn't recommend converting him, as you're probably going to cause some damage to the actual sculpt work, as well as here to the paint on the front of the nose. But just bring the head here forwards, we can then just bring the legs out and down, come here to the back, and of course repeat the same process with these hind legs. Fold out the tail section, take this piece, fold this up just to conceal that hollow space, and there we have Ravage more or less fully transformed up into his robot form. Now, this guy is also supposed to include 2 missiles which will store on the thighs. Sadly, as this is a pre-production sample, I didn't get any of those with this particular release, but rest assured yours should actually come with them. But you can see in regards to the detail on Ravage, I actually think this is a really awesome piece. The sculpt work is not only fantastic, but the attention to detail as well as the paintwork, he pretty much looks identical to what we saw in the movie, which is just so cool. You can see some wicked looking spinal detailing here on the back, all picked out in a really nice gunmetal. We've got this region which can either be an air intake, or I like to call it missile pods, as it definitely looks as if though Ravage could deploy missiles at the Autobots or Optimus Prime through this. But you can see here the face sculpt looks fantastic, really lovely detail going on there for the teeth, and you can see here for the claws, they also look really well done. And all of the joints on this guy, despite him being on a slightly smaller side, are actually really well made. So you can see that in regards to articulation, we do in fact actually get a ball joint here at the head, which can look left to right as well as rotate left to right. We also do get an opening and closing jaw, ball joints here at the top of where I imagine the shoulders would be. We've got a double joint here at the knee, so you can really get him into some very vicious poses. We do get a hinge joint here at the foot, and the same can also be said here for these back legs. And then we get a variety of different hinge joints here at the actual tail. And this guy does also actually pose pretty well, despite him being essentially just a robotic dog. So that's certainly a really nice inclusion. And for a very quick comparison, here we've got him compared next to the official 3.0 version. Now, of course, it doesn't come nowhere near as close to this particular release, as this is a premium collectible and is in fact licensed and is actually a lot bigger when in comparison to the Mechanical Alliance version. But just in regards to actual accuracy, I think they've come pretty close here with this Mechanical Alliance version. So there was your very quick comparison here between the 3.0 and the Mechanical Alliance version. But of course, we'll turn our attention to the main event himself. Here we've got the Mechanical Alliance Soundwave, and oh my goodness, does this guy look incredible. Basically a fantastic representation of what we saw in the movie. There is really no area that I think they skimped out on. From pretty much every single angle, he looks terrific. Even at the back, he's fully detailed, much like we saw in the film, and completely fully painted. So let's bring him in here for a closer look. You can see that in regards to the head sculpt, honestly, it just looks so well done. We'll touch base more with this mouthpiece later on in the review. You can see how I have sadly got some paint chips, and I'll actually show you a way of how you can avoid that. But you can see that in regards to the proportions, I think they've knocked it out of the park. Now, whilst not 100% spot on to the movie, I actually think the sculpt work here for this mouth region has turned out pretty decent. You can see we've got some really nice sculpted in lines. Of course, we've got that classic G1 Soundwave red visor, and the attention to detail to the actual head as well, I think, has turned out so nicely. You can even see here at the back, we've got some dry brushing as well as sculpted in detailing, and this concussion blaster or the shoulder cannon, oh my goodness, this looks so well done. You can see the sculpt work on that looks so awesome. We've got this massive almost turbine section here at the back. You can see the main cannon here at the front, completely dry brushed, looking awesome. And then as we actually take a look here to the torso region of Soundwave, I was super glad to see that they have in fact actually added this additional component full of detail actually underneath the transparent plastic. So even though Ravage is not stored within the chest, this section is still completely filled out so that he's not hollow. I think that was such a nice attention to detail, and you can see the sculpt work in there is wicked. This entire cassette deck, I guess you could call it, is made out of die cast, so it really does add a great sense of weight to the upper body, and it's been completely painted as well as sculpted. So you can see some of the silver dry brushing. Even here for the shoulder section, you can see some fantastic mechanical detail. The biceps, I think, have turned out really well, especially here for the forearms. Check out the sculpted in detailing as well as the paint wash we've got going on here. And the fingers too are also pretty decently detailed, despite them actually being fully articulated. As we turn our attention here down to the lower section, of course, you've got all of those classic G1 Soundwave nods, such as the cassette buttons, which look really cool. And the thighs, whilst on the slightly slimmer side when in comparison to the movie, I actually think they are thick enough. You can see the attention to detail on these looks really well done. Fantastic dirty wash applied over the top. Even spinning around here to the back, you can see some phenomenal detailing going on here, as well as for the back section of the bicep. The back of the arms fully painted. We've got the skirt section here. The spinal detailing all looks really well done. You can see we've got some really nice detail as well as paintwork. And not only is the figure awesome, but the actual design of this character in the B movie was one of the best. I actually think that's probably why most of his figures so far have turned out so well, just because the design is so awesome. But you can see here for the knee joints, really nice looking sculpt work. The shins all very thick and robust. And of course, even here for the foot, they've actually gone the extra mile detailing the underside, which also do have die-cast soles, which really helps to keep this guy stable along the ground. And you can see here really nice attention to detail. But it doesn't end there. This guy is also super articulated. So for the head joint, we do get a ball joint which can look up and down slightly, not to the best range to be completely honest. It can in fact actually look left to right to a pretty decent range. Here for the concussion blaster, this is on a hinge joint, so it can hinge up and down as well as swivel and rotate left to right. We do in fact get a butterfly joint due to transformation here at the shoulder, so this can hinge forwards and backwards. The shoulder can also move out to the side in order to accommodate, I would say, roughly 90 degrees here on a ratcheted joint. We do get a full rotation all the way around. Rotation here at the bicep, albeit slightly compromised due to the nature of the design. Now here for the elbows, when you actually get this guy out of package, they will actually be locked into place. So you can see how we've got this groove cut out. When you get him out of the box, you will merely only be able to get this range. And upon actually opening him, I was super let down. But if you do apply just a tiny bit of pressure here to this blue section, it will allow you to actually unlock this section, which then allows to get a fantastic range of motion. So that is awesome in my opinion. We get a full wrist rotation here, sadly on a ball joint joint which aren't the tightest, which is mainly one of the reasons why he can't hold his blaster all that well. But all of the fingers are completely individually articulated, you can see here, at roughly 4 points, which is just awesome. And the same can also be said here for the thumb. Now, if you fully extend them, the fingers do, in my opinion, look slightly out of proportion. But of course, if you just keep them in the fist, or you just perhaps want him commanding Ravage or the Decepticons in order to attack the Autobots, it doesn't look too bad at all. Here for the waist, we do get a full waist rotation, and that was something that I just was not expecting at all. And if you do actually slightly cheat it, we can use the transformation joint in order to get an almost fake ab crunch. So you can definitely crunch this section here forwards, as well as crunch it back, although it won't look the best from whatever angle you are going opposite to. So if you go back, you can see here from the front it doesn't look great, and if you go forward here from the back, it definitely doesn't look great. But I actually think that's awesome for posability. In regards to this skirt region, the cassette buttons are on ball joints, so you can manipulate these in order to actually get them out of the way, and the legs are on drop down hips, so these can ratchet down, which allows you to kick this here all the way forwards to such a great degree. We can of course kick it here all the way to the back. This skirt will also move out of the way to get a terrific degree there. We can also ratchet them out to the sides to 90. Full rotation here at the thigh, albeit slightly compromised due to the sculpt. And here for the knee, much like the elbows, upon actually getting him out of the box, they will be locked into place. But if you do just disengage that, you can bring this here all the way to the back past 90 there, which is fantastic. And finally here for the foot, these can pivot forwards and backwards, swivel side to side, as well as rock left to right. So overall, in regards to attention to detail, sculpt work, paint work, accessories, as well as articulation, this version of Soundwave is definitely a solid third-party release. And it doesn't stop there. They have in fact actually included an LED function here in the head. So if we just spin around here to the back, this is held on via a magnet, so you simply just detach that, toggle this switch here, and you can see how the eyes will indeed illuminate a really awesome vibrant red, much like we saw in the movie. That is wicked. I would have loved the actual button to perhaps have been the crest, so that you could have just pushed this and then they would have turned on and off instead of actually removing this back section. But honestly, I think this figure is so well done, especially for a third-party release, and considering this is really Mechanical Alliance's second original movie figure, I think they've done such a fantastic job. Honestly, bravo to the team, and I cannot wait to see as to what they come up with next. Here for a Soundwave comparison, we've got the Mechanical Alliance compared next to the DLX-30 version, and honestly, it's so damn close. The Mechanical Alliance version is in fact quite a bit cheaper than the DLX figure, although retains almost just as much detail and accuracy to the movie, and also includes Ravage, which is super cool. Now, in a way, it's not necessarily fair to compare these guys, as one is third party, whereas the other is officially licensed by Hasbro and Takara, and only Hasbro and Takara can officially make a transforming figure. So straight off the bat, 30 are at a slight hindrance. I still think if you want the most accurate version of Soundwave, then definitely go with the 30 option, as of course Soundwave never actually transformed in the movie. But for those of you looking for an almost movie masterpiece version of the character, I do definitely think that Mechanical Alliance figure will be more than suitable to fill the void. And as mentioned beforehand, he is in fact cheaper and is almost just as accurate and as detailed, although upon comparing these guys, I do think the Mechanical Alliance version of Ravage should have perhaps been a little bigger. Here for a comparison, next to the Mechanical Alliance Soundwave and the movie masterpiece 12 Optimus Prime, I actually don't think the scale here works too bad. Perhaps Soundwave is just a little too big, but we never actually see these guys go head to head in the movie, so I guess this could technically be accurate. And considering their version of Blitzwing was indeed in scale with the movie masterpiece figures, I think it would definitely stand to reason to give Soundwave the benefit of the doubt and actually think of him as being bigger than Prime. I've always personally loved the Decepticons being bigger than the Autobots, as it makes them even more formidable, but here's hoping we can actually get that one-to-one battle scene in Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So, turning to the transformation here for Soundwave, considering we never actually see this guy convert on screen, it really gave Mechanical Alliance creative freedom to solely focus on the robot mode and then give his alternate mode pretty much anything they could come up with, and you're definitely going to see that when we get him transformed. The alt form is by far the weakest alt mode I've probably ever seen on a live action movie figure, but in some regards it's very unique, and I guess some would say that it's pretty cool. So to begin with, you're going to want to come here to the back and just wriggle off the shoulder cannon. We can then take this particular segment, you're then going to want to port it in this secondary hole, snap that into place, and then just rotate this around and set it off to the side. We're then going to want to come here to the elbows and in fact lock them into place, just like that. Come to this side and repeat the same process, so just clip that in there. We can then turn our attention to the back of the arms, fold this panel down, and do the same here for this side. Come to the front of the figure, pull these sections forwards, take this section, fold this out, rotate here at the wrist, take the thumb, tuck that in like so, and then just proceed to bring that all the way in, and then just snap that in there really securely. Of course, come here to this side and repeat the exact same process. So hinge this out, tuck away the thumb, and just bring this around and just snap that in there and close that section up. We can then spin our attention here to the back of SOUNDWAVE. You're just going to want to lift these panels up here on the top. We can then take this region, disengage this here just to loosen that up, and then take these panels and fold them here to the back. We can then take these sections, fold them here as well. Take this, bring this up, and you're going to want to wriggle this section here so that the screw does essentially touch the top section of that plastic. Once completed, we can then take this, detach and just hinge out to the side, detach and hinge out to the side, and take these treads, bring these sections down, and snap them there into place. You're then going to want to spin your attention here to the front of the figure. Now, this is where I would definitely take a word of caution. Upon transforming him for the first time, you do in fact actually have to compress the head, and it is more or less locked into place. Now, the clearance between where the actual mouthpiece is and where this is in fact actually going to drop down is to a bare minimum. So if you want to reduce the risk of actually chipping the faceplate, I would recommend take it off. It's merely just held on via 2 ports, so you could just wriggle this section here off, pull it off, and then push the head down. So just to show you how that works, we can drop this here and you just shoot this section down, and you can see that there literally is no clearance between where the head and this neck section is. And of course, once that's down, we can then bring the mouthpiece back in and reattach it just like that, and then compress this particular section up. You'll then want to take this, rotate this here all the way around so that it then proceeds to conceal SOUNDWAVE's head. Turn your attention to the shoulders, and for this you're going to want to essentially rotate this here up, and then at the same time try and bring this joint down so that the screw is now facing towards you. We can then rotate here at the bicep. This tab is going to fulfill this slot, so snap that into place, and then this tab will fulfill this slot here, so just snap this section in as well. Come here to this side, and you guys guessed it, repeat the exact same process. So hinge this down, rotate at the bicep, snap that into place, bring this down, and snap that into place. And I guess in some ways you could call this his Cybertronian lamppost mode. Of course, it's a little more stylized when in comparison to what we actually saw from the G1 series, but I guess in some ways this could kind of work. We can then take these panels, rotate them around, and essentially they're just going to rest here in order to sort of fill out this hollow space, and repeat the same process. Now, with this entire upper region, there are in fact actually a few ways you can store these panels. I personally think that they are designed to actually tuck in, but then if you do that, it doesn't allow you to really compress this all the way down. So what you can do is, in fact, if I just attach these sections, is take them and fold them here to the back. Now, I personally don't like how this looks, but with them folded out, it does allow you to bring this slightly closer to the neck, and then the arms do in fact have enough clearance as they don't bump into the sides of this. You can see here how there is minimal clearance, and with this panel actually here, it does sometimes cause the arms to disengage. So just snap that into place and bear in mind that when you do convert him. We can then come here to the torso. You're going to want to disengage this particular region, and you can see 2 ports here on the back that are going to be filled via these 2 tabs. Now, you do have to be wary of this particular joint. You want to compress this in a way so that we are left without having to actually have anything sticking out the bottom. If you do decide to convert him like this is just not going to allow for clearance when actually rolling him on the ground. So you do have to fold this in a way so that it doesn't actually touch the base. So just snap that into place and repeat the same process here for this side. You can see how that's now completely smooth and won't obstruct conversion. We can then turn our attention here to these thigh pieces. Now, you're going to want to hinge the skirt up just like this and angle this to the back. The shoulders should be pulled forwards, as this tab is going to peg into this slot, so you really have to fight against this in order to actually lock that there, and it will in fact actually click into place. Come here to this side, and you guys guessed it, repeat the exact same process. So snap that in until it clicks. We can then take these panels, fold them out, and repeat the same process here for this side. Turn your attention here now to the legs. For this, you're going to want to take these, snap them there to the back. We can then take this and bring this all the way up, and this tab here will in fact peg into the slot here on the back. So just bring this up and over until that does snap into place. And one thing I may have failed to mention during articulation is he does in fact actually have a toe bend, which is super cool. For this section, you're going to want to extend the toe bend and just compress it along the side. Of course, come here to this side and repeat the same process. So bring this in and snap that in there. We can then take the toe, extend that, and compress that along the side. And then for a few finishing touches, spin your attention here to the bottom, take these thigh pads, bring them to the back, repeat the same process, take these treads here, pull these sections out, and repeat the same process, so pull those out, and then we can bring in Soundwave's shoulder cannon, and this will just port into the slot on the side, and there you have Soundwave fully transformed up into his supersonic Cybertronian tank mode. Now, as mentioned before we actually transformed him, he really doesn't look like a heck of a lot in this mode. It is definitely an afterthought, but I think it's a pretty cool and very stylistic looking vehicle mode, and who's to say that Soundwave didn't transform into this in the Bumblebee movie? Now, I personally would have loved to have seen them actually take a crack at converting him into a cassette player, but that probably would have been way too complex considering that he never actually converted in the film, and it probably would have really compromised the look of the robot mode, and not to mention would have made him so much more complex. But this is definitely a nice bonus mode, I guess you could say. In regards to detail, we've got these red sections here where the arms are, which I'd like to think of actually being the supersonic cannons. You can see we've got the cassette deck here. Sadly, you can't actually store Ravage in this mode due to the head actually dropping down, but some decent detailing. You can see we've got the treads here. These can in fact roll, which I'll demonstrate in just a second, but it really does look as if those Soundwaves just fallen over and crumpled into this almost half-folded mess. And we can now take this gun, collapse the handle that we would have used for robot mode, fold this one out, and this will port here on to the side of the tank, just like so. And here, just for a very quick demonstration, you can see how Soundwave can in fact glide along the ground with absolute ease, so he can drive and crush over the dead corpse of his Autobot opponents. So, some final thoughts here for the Mechanical Alliance SX-02 Transformers Bumblebee movie Soundwave. Honestly guys, I really like this figure, especially where that robot mode is concerned. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is probably the most fun I've ever had with a third-party figure. I think that in regards to the materials used, they've really knocked it out of the park. He's definitely a very high quality figure. None of the joints besides the wrists and the fingers are loose at all. I do think that is really the only area which is ultimately letting the tolerances down, but in regards to the joints, I think they're all really well done. It's great to see that you can in fact actually extend some joints in order to get a better range of motion, especially where those arms and the legs are concerned. I love the attention to detail, such as the drop down hips. That is awesome, and the actual attention to detail to Soundwave in robot mode is wicked. It looks exactly how he did in the movie. Of course, not as crisp and precise as that 3-0 figure, but that is a lot more expensive and is of course officially licensed by Hasbro. I think this guy is really well painted as well. He comes with the Ravage accessory, which whilst might be on the slightly smaller side, and sadly I couldn't show you what I personally believe to be the official conversion for this, is also a really nice bonus accessory. Ravage looks wicked, especially in his robot form. The transformation very simplistic and of course results in a very weak looking tank mode, but considering he never transformed in the movie, they had to come up with something, and to be fair, if they had tried to transform him into a cassette player, it probably would have resulted in a very complex conversion that ultimately just wouldn't have been worth it, seeing as we never actually see him transform in the movie, and it probably would have majorly compromised the robot mode. So overall, I have no issue in highly recommending this guy. If you don't have the 3-0 version and you're after a slightly cheaper alternative, a figure that can in fact actually transform and is almost just as detailed, then I personally would highly recommend this guy. He looks fantastic, and honestly 2021 has been such a year for third party figures. I've gotten some of the best pieces in my collection, and Soundwave will no doubt be one of those. Once again, I want to say a massive thank you to SOUNDWAVE Store for sending this guy here my way for a review, and if you are looking to add him to your collection, I will of course provide links down in the description box below. I would love to know down in the comments what you guys think of this particular figure. Will you be adding him to your collection? And also be sure to let me know what you think of the review. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.